Hi, my name is Jake, and I am a bookish drummer. So for this video, I'll be talking about my April wrap-up, chatting about all of the books that I managed to cram into the month of April. And if you guys are unaware, I haven't been doing as much YouTube as I'd like, mainly because of the Battle of the Bands Readathon, Readathon, god damn it, Readathon that took place exclusively on the Bookish Drummer Discord. I read a ton of books. I kind of projected to read like maybe 10, probably like 10 or 12 books. But man, I read 19 books. I was very close to finishing 20, but I got burnt out yet again. This is like the second or third time that I've almost read 20, but I read 19, which is fitting for a Stephen King fan, so I'll take it. But it was really stellar reading month. I didn't really get to film at all, but I'm glad I got to be able to read a lot. I found a lot of new favorites. I had 3 new 5-star reads, which is amazing, because normally I'll have like maybe 1, sometimes 0, but I had 3 this month. I had some bad books or some disappointing books, but overall April was definitely the best reading month I've had so far in 2025. Not only because of the number of books I read, but I read a ton of great stuff. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I'm going to try to organize this video, and I'm going to try not to make it too long, but I'm going to try to talk I'll do the DNF first, and I'll do my least favorites working up to my 5-star new favorites. So the 20th book that I was going to try to read, but I ended up DNFing it and got burnt out, was The Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulik, same author as Hidden Pictures. I loved that book, gave it 4.5 stars. This one, not so much. It has that trope where a young woman marries into a rich family, like the husband or the fiance that she wants to marry is in this mega rich family, and then the dad's kind of suspicious, and they're finding out some shady stuff about the family. I don't think I like that trope because I read a previous book. Oh God, I'll put it right here. I can't remember the name or the author, but that book I also did not like. Very similar premise. I guess I just don't like that premise because I got 200 pages into this book and nothing interesting was happening. Just like very obvious things where like, oh, we're finding out some shade. Like, I know I've seen this before. So yeah, this book was just very frustrating, and I DNF'd it. And surprisingly, the worst book that I was able to finish this month, I had very high hopes for, but it was Anathema by Nick Roberts. Very surprising, one of the more disappointing books I've read so far this year. I gave it 2.5 stars. I didn't hate it, but it was a big letdown because I really enjoyed The Exorcist's House by the same author, and I do want to read, I think it's a prequel novel called Genesis to that, and I also read a short story collection that was really good. This one I was very excited for, but I just did not get into it at all. I did not like the characters. I thought the dialogue was bad. It had some really weird and out there moments, and some crazy stuff happened, but I really need to get down with the characters. And for me, the character work in here was just very subpar. I did not like the dialogue. It just didn't feel like real people talking, which really gets under my skin. So yeah, overall, this book was very forgettable. Did not like it. It has a sequel, which I will sadly not be reading. So yeah, worst book that I was able to finish all month. And yet again, another disappointing book. I had super high hopes for this book. Was Luck in the Shadows by Lynn Flowing. And I really enjoyed her Tamir Triad trilogy. One of my favorite fantasy trilogies of all time now. And this is like a 7-book fantasy series that I was super excited for. I've already bought the first 3 books. But man, it's not bad, but I just didn't really care. Like, it was a 3-star book. Like, it was okay. It had its moments, but nothing really latched on for me. So sadly, like, I'll probably try book 2 just because I have book 2 and 3, but it's probably not going to be a new favorite series. Very disappointing. I was really hoping this was going to be a new favorite series and Lynn Flowing was going to be like a brand new favorite fantasy author, because that's the only 2 series she's ever written. So sadly, I did not enjoy this. And yet again, another disappointing book. I know I've said I had a great reading month, but I also had a lot of big disappointments. The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. Everyone and their mother was praising this book. And again, Stephen Graham Jones, one of my all-time favorite horror authors. But he's yet again proven to be kind of a hit or miss author, just like Stephen King. But yeah, this book I had very high hopes for. And it's just a big letdown because mainly because I did not enjoy the writing style. This book kind of takes place, I believe it was either like the early 1900s or the late 1800s or maybe both. But the writing style really reflects that. Like, the narrators of the story talk like they're from back then. It was just really hard to follow at times. And my main complaint with the book is that it was way too long. This is one of his longest books. He's normally writing, like, sometimes he writes novellas and like 200, 300 page novels. This one was like 16 hours on audio. Really, like, this book, I think, could have been a really convincing novella. It got very repetitive at times, and it was just very, very slow. So, very disappointing. I know a lot of people loved this book, but for me, one of his most disappointing books. And yet again, you know, I don't know if it's divisive, but this book kind of just proves that Stephen Graham Jones can be hit or miss for me. Even though he's one of my favorites, just like Stephen King, hit or miss. Another 3-star book was The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. I think this was, was it a Patreon? It was either a Patreon or a random number generator book. I don't have time to explain that. But this book was chosen for me to read by someone, and it had a really cool premise, and it had a really cool start. This book basically follows this young woman who gets hired to be this kind of older writer's chronicler, like, or biographer. And the start of this book, where we're kind of following the life of this young woman protagonist, was very interesting. But then, you kind of get to the bulk of the book, which she's kind of chronicling the life of this older author character. All of that was super boring and dull. I did not really care about her life. I liked the life of the chronicler way more, which, it should be the reverse, really. But yeah, this book was kind of just too long. The writing was really good and kind of flowery, but I really liked the writing. But the story itself was just not very compelling. So it was okay, not great. Also, I just needed a really short book to kind of like push myself through the readathon, and Stacy recommended me to read this Pat Rothfuss novella, which is somehow in the Kingkiller Chroniclers series, The Narrow Road Between Desires. She said she really liked it. I read it, gave it 3 stars. Kind of forgettable. Like, the writing was fine. The characters were fine. It was just fine. Like, I don't really have too much more to say. It was fine. And we also did the Stephen King book club yet again for April. And the April pick was The Running Man, which is a reread for me, like all Stephen King books, because I've read all this stuff. This one I always forget is very depressing. I always tell people, oh yeah, it's a really fun King. No, it's depressing. So go into that knowing it. Also, I'm not going to talk too much because I do have a dedicated book review, so go check that out if you would like to. But it's a 3.5-star book. Not as best, not as worst, somewhere in the middle. So now I remember, the 13th Tale was the random number generator book, and the Patreon book, which was chosen for me to read by Coleridge Girl, was The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, which is kind of a, I guess, semi-autobiographical tale of Tim O'Brien and other characters in the Vietnam War. This book had a really strong start to me, but kind of either like halfway through the book or closer to the end, the author kind of reveals something that really kind of grinded my gears, and I was just like, well, what's the point of me reading this if this is true? And I've talked with a few people that I kind of understand what the author is going for, but at the same time, it definitely left a bitter taste in my mouth for that. It was still good, really well written, and very memorable, and I can see why it's a modern classic, but not my favorite. I gave it 3.5 stars. Also, a random audio book that I gave 3.5 stars was Zero G by Dan Wells. Dan Wells, mainly known for John Cleaver, kind of an adult horror series. This one was, I would say, like more of a middle grade sci-fi, kind of space opera kind of book with space pirates. Very different than what he normally writes, but this book was fun. It's definitely for middle grade people. It was fun. Not the best, like, obviously for middle graders, like I could see everything coming from a mile away. It was still fun. Not the best thing I ever not the best thing I ever read, but it was good. I gave it 3.5 stars. All right, everything from this point on, I gave at least 4 stars, which is amazing because I have a lot of books to talk about still, and I really enjoyed all of these books. I'll start with Dogs of War by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I've yet to give Adrian Tchaikovsky like a 5-star read, but all of his books are always super compelling, have really unique premises, and like the title suggests, Dogs of War, like the main character I would say in this book is Rex, who is a good boy. Because chapter 1, Rex, my name is Rex, I am a good dog. Basically the main character is this giant, like, artificial dog, like just literal killing machine, and there's other killing machine entities in this dog's group, and it's a wild ride. I'll say that right off the bat. This is, I think, so far a trilogy. I think it has the third book's coming out soon, if not right now. I will definitely be continuing the second book. I think each book kind of takes place in different perspectives. So like this one is obviously from the dog's POV, but there's also a bear. There's also a bee, or like a beehive collective. So it's going to be weird. Like Adrian Tchaikovsky is just a weird guy who writes really weird, wacky premises, but his books are always enjoyable. But yeah, this one was a solid 4-star read. Next up, I read Before I Met You by Lisa Jewell, and I gave this book 4 stars, which means that this is the only Lisa Jewell book that I've given less than 4.5 stars, believe it or not. I've read, I don't know, probably like a dozen or so of her books. I've given all of them, most of them 5 stars, and then a couple of them 4.5 stars. This has definitely been my least favorite. It's definitely a major departure from what she normally writes, because this is, one, historical fiction. A large chunk of this book kind of takes place in the 20s, reflecting back on an older character's life. And then kind of in the 90s, kind of a romance plot a little bit. So it's very different than like her typical thriller mystery stuff that she writes today. This is one of her older books. My main complaint was that I really didn't care for the flashback chapters, like all the stuff that took place in the 20s. It was fine. Everything else was really good. It's still standout writing and characters that I love from Lisa Jewell, but just not as compelling as her newer thriller stuff. So this one was pretty good. Gave it 4 stars, but definitely my least favorite. I'm not even sure if I'm going to keep this book, because I'm not really sure if I'll ever go back and reread it, but it was pretty good. I also read The Last Session by Julia Bartz, same author as The Writing Retreat, which I read last year. Really enjoyed. Gave that book 4.5 stars. This book, I believe, came out right in April, and I was super pumped to read this book. This book, I would say for like the first half, I was very convinced that this was going to be yet again another 4.5 star, maybe even possibly 5-star material. This book just, I loved the way that she writes her stories, and it was very compelling. It kind of lost me a little bit in the second half, and definitely towards the ending. Kind of lost me a little bit, but it was still really good. And I really enjoy the way that Julia Bartz tells a story and puts a story together. Great characters, great mystery, keeps you kind of engaged the whole way through. It kind of just lost me a little bit in the second half, but I still really enjoyed it and gave it 4 stars. Also, for the Thrill Chill Kill book club pick for the month of April was And There He Kept Her, by Joshua Moling. This one was very good. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't really like anything like super new or super crazy. It was just a really solid thriller that kept me engaged the whole time. I was definitely anxious to find out what was going to happen. It's one of those things where it's not really, I wouldn't say like a big twist on anything, because you kind of know already very early on what's going on. But it's interesting to see how the characters figure out what's going on, and then other characters what they're going to do in retaliation to that. So yeah, it was overall very good, very solidly written. It's the first book in a series, and apparently the second book, I think, kind of takes more of a mysterious element, so you don't quite know what's happening. So that'll be interesting to check out eventually down the road, maybe next year. But this one was very solid, gave it 4 stars. And now we're getting into 4.5 star territory. I really enjoyed these books. Not quite perfect, but still really enjoyed them, including After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've given almost all of her books, again, 4.5 stars and 5 stars. This one was 4.5 stars. Not one of my all-time favorites, like Daisy Jones, Malibu Rising, Seven Husbands, like those kind of books are amazing. This one was still really good. It's definitely more a bit on the romance side, which, I'm not a big romance guy, but the way that she does it with really great characters, really great drama and humor, a great mix between the two. I really like the way that she writes her books. And yeah, this one did not disappoint at all. This is my wife's favorite, which makes sense. This is all about a kind of a couple who at the very beginning of the book are kind of going through just typical marriage strife, and you kind of flash back to like how they met and then kind of flash forward to where they are now. And they basically decide to take a 1-year separation trial, and it's basically their life going through that. And it was very compelling. So I really liked it and gave it 4.5 stars. I also caught up and finished War for the Rose Throne. So at the very beginning of the month, I had to catch up because I was supposed to read Priest of Gallows in March, but I didn't have time. So I read that at the very beginning of April. Really liked it. I would say this is my least favorite of the series. I believe I either gave it 4 or 4.5 stars. Did I give it 4? Did I? Oh yeah, I did give this 4 stars, but maybe retroactively, like, whatever. But anyway, I really liked it. And then Priest of Crowns, which is the finale, which I was supposed to read in April, and I did. I really enjoyed the finale. It is a bit long, but just great Thomas Piety stuff. And the ending was really great, really gut-wrenching. And I think this is a series, like normally if I go back and reread a series, I would kind of do like, 1 book a month, kind of split it up. But I think the way that I want to read this series is kind of just have maybe like 1 or 2 months where I just kind of read it back to back to back to back, because I just want to try that. But yeah, really great conclusion. 4.5 stars. Definitely one of my new favorite fantasy series of all time. I'm not sure if it would quite crack the top 10, but it's definitely top 20, probably top 15. It's right up there. I also read Dungeon Crawler Carl, which was the first book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. This was our first book for the DCC read-along that's taking place on the Book of Stormer Discord. Ton of people read this book. Most of us loved it. Some people didn't have a great time with it, but most of us, I believe, really liked it, really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. It quite possibly could deserve 5 stars, but I'm going to maybe save that rating if some of the books later on in the series get even better and better. And then maybe retroactively, if I go back and reread it, it might turn into 5 stars. But generally, I believe this is going to be a new favorite for me because the humor is just so great. And I love when like SFF stuff can have a sense of humor, because sometimes you can read fantasy and sci-fi. It can be very dry and very dark and dramatic, but this one is just a really fun time. It's a really fun series. Really love the humor. Characters are great, and I don't really think I'm gonna love the lit RPG genre, but the way that Matt Dinniman writes the series, I think I'm gonna love this series. So yeah, 4.5 stars. Excellent. And like I mentioned at the very top, I had 3 5-star new favorite books. So I haven't read these books before, and I gave them 5 stars. very rare for me to give out this many 5-star books in 1 month. But yeah, that's another reason why April has just been such an amazing reading month this time around. The first one I'll talk about I have right here, and I was definitely pumped to read this book, and it did not disappoint. I read The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. I didn't quite love it as much as Just Like Home, which is one of my favorite horror novels, but this one was excellent. Gave it 5 stars. It's all about kind of the general premise of cloning. I won't give too much away, but I do love a good clone story, and this one did not disappoint. I can see why people don't love it, or why people would get disappointed, maybe with the ending or just the direction it goes in. But I really like the way that she writes. I really think her writing is very it's up my alley. So I really love this book, and 5 stars, obviously, and it just makes me even more excited to check out more of her back catalog and read her newer books as they come out. So yeah, Sarah Gailey, probably a new favorite author for me. Loved this book. And the next 5-star book that I have to read was kind of a surprise. I figured I would like the book, but I did not think I would fall in love with this book. This was recommended for me to read by Ian because during the readathon, if I can talk, our very first prompt was to read a childhood favorite, and one of Ian's childhood favorites was Perks of Being a Wallflower by none other than Stephen Chbosky. That's right, the same guy who wrote one of my favorite horror novels, Imaginary Friend. 20 years prior, wrote a really well-regarded YA book, just a YA contemporary book. So going into this book, I had known people that had read this book in the past, and then once they got to Imaginary Friend, they're like, wait, what? How did this happen? I kind of did that in the reverse order. I read and loved Imaginary Friend, and then I went and read this book, and I'm just like, how did this guy write that? What the hell? That's the only 2 books he's ever written, too. But this book was just really well. I love this book. And it's weird because it reads kind of like like a YA, almost kind of more a serious adult version of what Jordan Sonnenblick would write. I would be very shocked if Jordan Sonnenblick wasn't heavily inspired by this book, because almost beat for beat, this book read just like a Jordan Sonnenblick book, which is one of the reasons why I love this book. But it makes me think, did Jordan Sonnenblick take some liberties with his books now? But yeah, I love this book. If you've read Jordan Sonnenblick, you'd probably like this book. I loved the main character. I loved the humor. I loved how serious it got and poignant it got at times. But yeah, I can see why a lot of people growing up would get attached to this book and really love it. I do as well. It's definitely one that I'll be going back to reread sometime in the future, probably a few times. But yeah, it's definitely a new 5-star favorite, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And now we're getting to not only my favorite book of the month, but possibly a strong contender for book of the year. This book, also recommended to me by Ian. Ian just needs to make me read all his favorite books, but not his top favorites, because East of Eden and what's that other book? The Lonesome Dove. Not for me, but maybe stick with horror and other genres. But yeah, this book was amazing. I haven't even said the book yet. It's When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. And I've read a couple of his other books. Mary is one of my favorite books that I read last year. One of my new favorite horror novels. I also read his other one, Nestlings, which I liked. I didn't love it. I gave it 4 stars. But Mary was 5 stars. When the Wolf Comes Home, I kind of just knew the basic premise of it's a werewolf tale. But 30 to 40% into this book, you kind of realize that there's way more to it than that. And it gets just the best kind of weird you can imagine, at least in my opinion. Probably some people will read this book and they'll be like, what is this? I did not ask for this. What is going on? But for me, reading a horror book, that's exactly what I want. I want it to get weird. I want books that I can't predict what's going to happen. A lot of my favorite horror books are like that. But yeah, this book was amazing. And again, a very strong contender for favorite book of the year. You know, some of these other books, you know, like Echo Wife and Perks of Being a Wallflower were excellent, but When the Wolf Comes Home, just top notch. It's up there with Small Mercies. And wait, did I read Small Mercies this year or last year? No, I read it this year. Yeah. So Small Mercies is up there. Boys in the Valley is up there. The Unworthy is up there. A lot of new 5-star horror favorites. But yeah, When the Wolf Comes Home, very strong contender. Definitely the best book that I read all in April. All right, so those are the 19 books that I managed to finish in the month of April, including one DNF, which kept me from making my 20-book readathon goal, but whatever. 19 is still a great number, right, constant readers? But anyway, April, definitely the best reading month I've had all year, not only in terms of the number of books I got to read, but I also got a lot of brand new favorites. I got 3 5-star new favorites, a bunch of 4.5 stars, and just overall great reading month. Some disappointments, but overall very good. What I want to know is, what was your favorite book that you read in all of April, or even like your top 5 or whatever? Comment down below and we'll chat about it and maybe give me some new recommendations. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you stuck around and enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That's thumbs up, Jake. And consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. If you're already subscribed, stay subscribed for more content. And check out the Bookish Tournament Discord, where we've always got tons of buddy reads and read-alongs happening all the damn time. Too many for me to literally keep up with. Like, I'm doing most of them, but I can't do all of them. But there's plenty to pick and choose from, y'all. And also, Patreon link down below if you want to go support me there for as little as $1 a month, people. $1 or $1. There you go. But anyway, also Amazon wishlist if you want to buy me a book. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a fantastic day.